What's up, everybody? This is your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga, here to bring you another video with no frills, just the analysis. And today I'm going to be reviewing Season 3, Episode 1 of The Walking Dead, entitled Seed. And yes, the heavens shine upon us all again. I've been waiting for this. Obviously, I've been waiting for this a long time. And in my estimation, season 2 was awesome, great, and so I obviously have high expectations of season 3 of The Walking Dead. Glad to see all of my Walking Dead reviewers again. Hope you guys missed me. But before I get into the summary and analysis of this episode, first I gotta do a little bit of promotion here. I would like to point you in the direction of a fellow YouTuber, actually also a friend of mine. His channel is called AMC The Talking Dead. So make sure you subscribe to his channel. This guy is a true Walking Dead fan. He's bought the comic books, he's read the comic books, and he's made a channel solely dedicated to The Walking Dead. So he's got information type videos, discussion videos, videos based on the comic books, and he just all around keeps you up to date on the most current Walking Dead news. So make sure you subscribe to AMC The Talking Dead. There'll probably be an annotation somewhere on this video. Alright, so now let's hop right into the summary and analysis of this episode. Before I talk about anything, though, I have to address two things. Two small things. Maybe they're big things for other people, but for me, they're just small things. And I have to talk about two things that always strikes me as ridiculously implausible about this show. The first thing is that, why is everybody a perfect shot? I mean, perfect headshots. It's like they don't even miss. Generally, when you learn to shoot a gun, they tell you shoot for center body mass, chest area, stomach area, because that's the easiest place to hit. And it's besides the head, it's the place that you can hit that'll do the most damage. Nobody learns to shoot a gun by just aiming at somebody's head. I mean, so the fact that these guys are a perfect shot. Second thing, which I find somewhat implausible. Why do these zombies have such strong teeth and jaws? And I know that might sound crazy at first, but hear me out for a second. Aren't they supposed to be rotting? Aren't they supposed to be practically rotting corpses? So why is it that these zombies have such strong teeth and jaws? I mean, when they bite somebody, they really take a chunk out of a person. So those are just two things that I've noticed that I just had to talk about. Also, let me quickly talk about Andrea and Michonne. Michonne made somewhat of a cameo in this episode. She only appeared in, I think, maybe one or two scenes, and Andrea appeared in also one or two scenes. So not much is really happening with them. What we can figure out is that they've been together for throughout the winter, and now Andrea is still alive, but I'm not sure she's very sick or just kind of sick, but we see that she is in fact sick. And one of the scenes that we see is where Michonne is going to sort of drugstore to get medicine to bring back to Andrea. And I just want to say this. Michonne is a straight up badass. Whoa. With that katana? Damn, girlfriend got it going on. Seriously. She is not to be messed with. Not at all. Whoa, is she a badass. Just had to say that. So now let me talk about the name of this episode. The title of this episode, Seed. And there's a lot of symbolism behind this title, and some of the symbolism is somewhat straightforward, or at least I think so. Obviously, seed is generally used in literature to be symbolic of new beginnings, hope, the possibility for, well, in this context, possibilities for surviving the future. And it might also potentially be a reference to Lori's pregnancy, because seed pregnancy, that sort of thing, and maybe the baby that Lori is carrying, which a lot of people have speculated about, maybe that baby carries some kind of antivirus or something like that that can be used to fight the spread of this, I don't even know what to call it, zombie virus, I suppose, or zombie infection. So, and then also at first I thought that the symbolism of seed could have also been used as a reference or foreshadowing of Woodbury, which is, for those people who don't know, and this isn't much of a spoiler, a very, very beautiful and bucolic town that our survivors are going to find themselves in, and is going to be sort of a false Garden of Eden. But every semblance in The Walking Dead, every semblance of hope in The Walking Dead is always accompanied by some terror or some horror. And that's precisely what's going to happen in Woodbury. And that's why I referenced false hope just a moment ago. So, in one sense, the symbolism of seed is very straightforward. Hope, the possibilities of surviving this post-apocalyptic situation. But on the other hand, the seed could also be symbolic of the prison, which is what this episode was basically all about. And so the seed could potentially be some kind of false hope. And whenever we see the prison, at first sight, it looks like it could be a fortress. It's got an armory, an infirmary. Maybe it's even got some food there, and it provides some protection. In some sense, that prison, as a symbol, is going to turn out to be a false hope, because the world is a prison now. The world is pretty much a prison. No matter where these people go, the zombies will be right there on them. So in one sense, the prison is symbolic of hope in the sense that it could be a fortress. But on the other hand, it's also symbolic of a false hope, because you're in prison. Your life is a prison. Pretty much. That's what it all boils down to. So the first scene we get in this episode is the survivors drive up to a house, and everybody hops out, and they're looking all anxious, and they run into the house, and immediately they start sweeping for walkers. They start killing all the walkers they can find, shooting them down with bows and arrows, cutting their heads off, everything like that. And basically what this is a scavenger mission. And so they clear the house, they scavenge for supplies, they procure whatever is, useful in the house. And one of the things that I immediately noticed was that Lori is very, very pregnant. So there was a winter time skip, and this was mentioned a little bit later on, not later on the episode, but like a few minutes later, where Rick is talking about how they've basically been running around in circles. So it seems like about at least 4 or 5 months have passed since the finale of season 2. And the group doesn't look good at all. I mean, they look like they are in dire straits. Forget the fact that they've been running around in circles, as Rick describes it, for 4 or 5 months throughout the winter. And the winter was probably especially brutal. But the whole group just looks like they're on the verge of collapse. Hershel, poor Hershel. He looks so pathetic. I mean, he really does, and I really feel sorry for him, especially for what happened at the end of this episode. But his hair is all grown now. He's got beard and mustache. Hair is all long. Looks all unkempt. And Rick, he just looks completely off kilter. I mean, he looks psychologically unstable, and this was sort of referenced in a lot of little ways throughout the episode, that they were pointing to the sort of psychological instability of Rick. I mean, we see him being paranoid, pacing around, being fixated on things. He looks like he's all out of sorts, and he's not crazy. Yeah, I wouldn't call him crazy yet, but he's definitely off kilter. as you know, old black folk used to say, just a little bit off kilter. And so I think the problem with Rick is that on one hand, he understands that he needs to take on the full responsibility and authority of leading the group. And a lot of people have pointed this out when they say that, you know, the group has transferred itself from a democracy to a dictatorship, because that's pretty much what they are right now. And we see that this was absolutely necessary. It was becoming too fractious in the group. Everybody wanting to go off and do their own separate things, and that just obviously wasn't going to work out for the long-term prospects for the survivability of the group. But on the other hand, it looks like that burden is taking a real toll on Rick throughout this last brutal, I would expect, 4 or 5 months. And I think, man, he just looks like he's at his breaking point. And everybody has that breaking point. I mean, you could easily imagine if you yourself were in the middle of a post-apocalyptic zombie situation. How would you be reacting if you were tasked with the responsibility and authority of leading this group of survivors? So, and the to sort of, in a very literal sense, to show the his psychological instability or the disruption of his, I don't know, sanity in some sense. They couldn't have been at that house for more than maybe 10 minutes before a whole group of walkers show up at the house. And they immediately have to run out the house, hop in the cars, and hightail it out of there. So after they leave the house, they happen to come upon the prison, which was shown in the finale of season 2, and their immediate plans are to infiltrate this prison. So first they have to take over the prison yard, and it was pretty gruesome and it was touch and go. But from relatively speaking, they were able to take over the prison yard pretty easily, and obviously this is a good thing. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this review, there's probably food in that prison, there's an armory in the prison, there's an infirmary in the prison, which they'll obviously need for Lori when she goes into labor. So this is a very good thing. And also, a prison is practically a fortress, although it may not feel like a fortress after the end of this episode. But there was one interesting scene that I want to talk about very briefly, which is a scene where after they take over the prison yard, they're sitting in the prison yard, and they're all sitting around a fire, and Hershel coaxes Beth, I believe that's her name, Beth, into singing a song. And you can see how everybody's spirits are at least relatively speaking, lifted by being able to engage in singing this song. And what this shows is that, and this is why I like the writing of The Walking Dead so much, because they put in little things like this that may not seem important, but if you look at it within the context of everything that's going on, it's really important. Because what this shows is that this activity of singing together is really a part of community building and creating bonds with each other, and not just bonds built on the fact that they need each other in order to survive, but in order to give each other a sense of hope, so that they don't have to always be forced to dwell on the fact that they're in this post-apocalyptic zombie situation, and it's absolutely necessary for maintaining their sanity. And while this is going on, however, we see Rick in the background, and he's constantly circling around the fence of the prison yard. And Hershel actually mentions this. He says something to the effect of, he's been around that thing 3 times. If there was anything wrong with the fence, he'd have found it already. And so this is another little instance where we see that perhaps Rick's psychological state is in question, because he's just absolutely fixated on this fence, walking around and around this fence. And like I said, it's just growing evidence of his potential psychological instability. And as soon as they're done singing their song, Rick comes back to the group and gives everybody kind of bad news, I would say. And he tells them that it's not enough that they've taken over the prison yard. He knows everybody's tired, but when the sun comes up, they're going to have to go and secure the actual prison. And they're not going to be able to use guns. They're actually going to have to go and secure the prison hand to hand. Basically, no weapons that you can't carry. And basically beat a zombie to death with. And however, before they actually take over the prison, there is this one scene between Rick and Lori. And Lori attempts to speak to Rick. Obviously, their relationship has continued to be strained because of what happened at the end of season 2. And everybody remembers the infamous, notorious scene of Lori's reaction when Rick admits that he had to kill Shane, and how everybody, basically everybody called her an ungrateful bitch. Just put it that way. But I think her bitch status is on its way to being somewhat revoked by the writers, because she does genuinely seem like a sympathetic character in this episode, if for no other reason than the fact that she seems to be genuinely remorseful about the psychological strain that she put on Rick, and about how she reacted to Rick when he admitted to the group that he basically had to kill Shane in a do or die situation. So there's definitely some hope for Lori's character. So then we get to the prison takeover, and they manage to take over the entrance, the sort of entrance of the prison, or at least a cell block of the prison. I think it's a cell block, but I'm not really sure about that. But Rick and the group, well, not the group, they don't decide anything anymore. Rick decides that the group has to venture out into other areas of the prison, other cell blocks. Obviously, they have to secure the entire prison, and they have to get to the armory and the infirmary, and they basically have to go on their little scavenger mission. So he basically decides that the group has to venture out into the other cell blocks. And this is pretty much where things go. All hell breaks loose is pretty much what happens. So they go into a cell block, and the way they have to take it over is that obviously no guns. And they also have no electricity in the prison. There's no lights. So everything is dark, and the only light is flashlights. So you can obviously imagine that this is a situation primed for a disaster, as well as being just generally freaking scary as all hell. And what happens is they run into a group of walkers, and they're like, oh shit, we gotta back up. They try to back up, they turn around, another group of walkers. So they're basically trying to get out of this situation. And in the midst of the confusion, the group gets separated. And one group has Rick, Daryl, Hershel, and T-Dog. And I hope T-Dog gets some play this season. I mean, he really needs some play this season. Really. They need to take off his 20-word maximum per episode limit. They got to take that limit off. Yeah, I mean, I want to see more characterization for T-Dog. But anyway, the second group contained Glenn and Maggie. And while in the middle of this confusion, while they're trying to locate each other, Hershel walks down a corridor in the prison, and he walks by a seemingly dead body, but it's actually a zombie. And when he walks past, the zombie grabs him and just bites a freaking chunk. I mean, a huge freaking chunk right out of his leg. Yeah, Hershel got. He got. It's pretty much over for him. I mean, it's pretty much over for Hershel at this point. I'm almost certain that man is gonna die. But I think most people expected this. I mean, nobody really expected Hershel to live all that long. I think even the directors, when I was watching an episode of The Talking Dead, might have mentioned this, that initially Hershel was going to die in the finale of season 2, when the farm was overrun by all those walkers. I think that's when he was initially supposed to die, and they just sort of postponed it until the premiere of season 3. But in any event, Rick sees the bite. They get him on the ground, and he takes off his belt, and he wraps it around his leg to use as a what is those things? A stanchion? Is that it? Or I forget. A tourniquet. That's what it's called. A tourniquet. And he proceeds to whip out an axe and starts chopping off Hershel's leg. Oh man. They showed the scene of Hershel's face, and it just looked like, I mean, have you ever been in so much pain that you can't even cry out? I mean, the voice doesn't even get from your diaphragm to your throat and out your mouth. That's the kind of pain it looked like Hershel was in when Rick was just chopping off this man's leg with an axe. I mean, at least if he had like a katana like Michonne has, it'd be a clean cut. But with a blunt axe? Oh, man. And the look on Rick's face while he's doing this, I mean, you could just see it. He's at this breaking point. I mean, it's only so much that a person can take before they snap. And you can just see it all in his disposition, all in his face. And he just did not look stable in that scene at all. He just, like he was going through a process of dissociation, psychological dissociation, where he's just kind of abstracted himself from the reality of the situation. And what's very, very interesting is compare this situation to a similar circumstance that happened in season 2 when Randall jumped off the building and his leg got caught on the gate, and Rick absolutely refused to cut his leg off. Now compare that situation to this situation. In this situation, Rick doesn't even hesitate. He immediately takes off his belt and chops this man's leg off. So Rick, I mean, his character transformation is pretty much complete. And at this point, it just looks like his entire moral worldview is just under assault. Just absolutely under assault. And like I said before at the beginning of this episode, he is now truly, in a very true sense, literally and psychologically, he's just an absolute prisoner of this world. He can't even entertain the moral choices that he once entertained. The world just won't let him. It's holding him hostage, basically. Psychologically speaking, the world is just holding him hostage. And in the very last scene of this episode, the camera kind of cuts to some other people who I think are in the prison. I think they're also in the prison, or maybe they're on the outside of the prison looking through a window. But whatever the case may be, we see someone else in the shot, and it looks like the group of survivors are not alone. And obviously this was foreshadowed in the trailer, so I'm pretty sure that the people who were watching this scenario are from Woodbury. I can't be certain of that, but I'm pretty sure that these people are from Woodbury. So great episode. I mean, what a way to start off this season premiere with a bang. I mean, already we're one episode down, and already someone's dead or in the process of dying. So just a great episode this week. Can't wait for more Walking Dead. So this has been your boy Uber Hikari, aka the Nerd Nigga. Just brought you another video with no frills, just the analysis. Peace and have a blessed day.